مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين، محمد سيد الكونين والثقلين والفريقين من عرب ومن عجم. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Mulla Asghar Resource Center. We would like to thank all of you for attending. Today's panel discussion is towards peace and harmony between Muslims. We would like to thank the Organization of Islamic Learning to help facilitate this program, and of course I'd like to thank our eminent panelists to be here with us today. MARC has a core mission of interfaith and intrafaith understanding, and this program today fits right in with our core vision and our mission. I'd like to thank the audience for your participation today, and I know that you're ready to go with some great questions on the panel, and inshallah we'll come to you in due course. Insofar as the program today is concerned, for years Muslims of all backgrounds, especially scholars, activists, and intellectuals have been working relentlessly to enhance the understanding between the Shia and Sunni. The sad part is that it seems not to have succeeded very well. We hope that the eminent scholars that we have here will be able to guide us on this path to see how can we enhance that understanding. So without further ado, let me introduce in alphabetical order, our very eminent panelists. We have Sheikh Bahmanpour, Sheikh Muhammad Saeed Bahmanpour, who was raised in Iran, studied at the Queen Mary College, London, at the London School of Economics, as well as the Allama Tabatabai University in Tehran. He has been the editor of several cultural, religious, and political magazines. He's also a visiting fellow at the University of Cambridge, and most recently a lecturer for advanced studies in London. His recent book, Muslim Identity in the 21st Century, was published in London in 2001. He's also the editor-in-chief of the Echo of Islam, a cultural and political monthly magazine, and the Message of Thaqalain, a quarterly magazine on Shiite thought and history. He has also worked on TV scripts such as the serial The Virgin Mary, produced by IRIB. Dr. Bahmanpour also holds a BA and a MA in sociology from the Allama Tabatabai University in Tehran. Welcome, Sheikh, to this panel.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Our next eminent panelist is Dr. Hamid Slimi. Is a resident scholar and founder of the Sayyida Khajida Center. He's been serving as Imam, chaplain, educator, and consultant in Canada for 17 years in different religious and educational institutions. Dr. Slimi's traditional academic specialty is Islamic studies and law, as well as comparative world religions. In addition to the traditional degrees known as Ijaza, he holds 2 master's degrees with high honors in both disciplines from Morocco and the US, and a PhD in Islamic law from the UK. Dr. Slimi has been representing the Muslim community at many multi-faith councils, and is also an advisor and consultant for a good number of different local and national institutions. Let's get right into the subject. While many Muslims talk about unity, their starting point often seems weak. It begins with a point where the other side is tolerated and not accepted as equally legitimate. Dr. Bahmanpour, may I have your thoughts and a reflection as an opening statement on this thought?
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As you rightly mentioned, usually our starting point on unity is very weak. We either think that we have to tolerate each other, or think that because we have a common enemy, we have to come together, which means after that common enemy goes away, we have to fight with each other. I think unity is something commanded in the Quran. In chapter 42, Surah Shura, we have this very direct, explicit, clear command. أَقِيمُوا الدِّينَ وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ. Keep the faith and do not divide in it. Now, I have been pondering about this verse for a long time. What does that mean? It's not possible. I mean, when we come to understand religion, when we come to understand the history, when we come to interpret the Sunnah of the Prophet, the Quran, we, of course, are divided. We have different understandings. Despite this, the Quran tells us, أَقِيمُوا الدِّينَ وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ. And I think what the verse intends to tell us is that despite your different understandings, despite different interpretations, you are one faith, and you have to keep this one faith together and do not divide among yourself. What is the reason for this division? The next verse actually explains it with regards to past nations. And I think our nation, nation of Islam, is plagued with exactly the same problem. It says, وَمَا تَفَرَّقُوا. The past nations, they did not divide إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمِ. After knowledge came to them. The scholars, you see, the problem is that initially the scholars, those who have knowledge, they divide, and they somehow drag the masses after themselves. What is the reason for it? It's not different understandings. It's not difference of opinion. It is بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ. وَمَا تَفَرَّقُوا إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمِ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ. Baghi, it means when you want to dominate others, when you want to say, I am the right one, I am the one who should lead and the others should follow me. I am the one who should dominate over others. This is the cause of all division. Otherwise, different understanding, different interpretations should not lead to division. It should lead to better understanding. We have to discuss things to each other. We have different approaches. We talk to each other and we understand each other better. Why we divide is baghi. This is clearly mentioned in the Quran with regards to past nations, and unfortunately our nation has that as well.
Thank you very much for those very profound words. Dr. Slimi, may we have your reflection on the same question?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala man istafa wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man ja'a ba'dihim maqtafa. First and foremost, thank you for having me in this session today, and it's a wonderful thing. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to repeat, that if I am called to an alliance of the Arabs back then, it wasn't a religious alliance, I would answer that call, which was known as the alliance of al-Fudul, Hilf al-Fudul. And he repeated that when he was in Medina, to always show us the path. Where there is consensus, that is our place. And the Quranic verse that encourages us to open our doors to non-Muslims, especially the people of the book. قُلْ تَعَالَوْا قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَىٰ كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. Between us and the people of the book, you wonder, how about the people that Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the authentic hadith and sunnah, من صلى صلاتنا واستقبل قبلتنا وأكل ذبيحتنا فذلك المسلم. Translation: whoever prays the prayer we do and faces the same qibla as we do and eats the dhabiha, meaning the slaughtered animal according to the law of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the Muslim. And the dhimma of Allah al-Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the protection is guaranteed for him as a Muslim. It's a clear indication that anyone who declares to be Muslim and prays and faces the same qibla and eats the halal is one of us. He did not say the other things that usually divide us, and he did not state the differences that we usually highlight, but rather he focused on the main items: salat, qibla, and halal, to tell us that you shouldn't delve too much into interpretations, but rather stick to the principles. As far as unity is concerned, it is quite a challenge. It is a challenge. However, history has showed us that it is possible if we have the right intention and we are sincere. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and he is the one who is capable of that unity compared to any one of us in any other time. He said, لو ألفت بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض ما ألفت بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم. If you were to spend whatever on earth of resources, you would never be able to unite their hearts. But it is Allah who brings the hearts together. So this issue is the issue of the heart. It is an issue of unity. It is an issue of togetherness. You have to start from the right ground. Now, emotionally, we cannot be united. Spiritually, we can with the help of Allah. So first and foremost, we turn to Allah Almighty, our Creator, reveal our intentions, be sincere in our prayers, and ask Him for that. That's number one. Number two, do what the Prophet, peace be upon him, is the uswa hasana, who is the one to be followed, and learn from history that people, when they're united by their common interests, but also by their source of inspiration and the united goals, they can be pragmatic. And I use the word pragmatic because today, more than any other time, we have, for the sake of the name Islam and those three things I mentioned earlier, we have to work for that unity.
Thank you. It's interesting you mentioned Hilf al-Fuzul and the concept of the Medina Constitution. Let me throw this question at you, that if our Prophet ﷺ was present amongst us today, what would his comments be on Muslim society today?
Well, no doubt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has equipped him with what, ourselves cannot be equipped. He is not a regular human being. He was a human being, but a special human being. So he has the faculties and the abilities that we don't have. Undoubtedly, looking at the Muslim situation today, there will be many among the Muslims who will reject the Prophet ﷺ, because he would be definitely straightforward in his speech, in his comments, with wisdom, but he will say many things that many Muslims of today would not like. To put down our, self-glory and put away our minor differences, and to focus on priorities, because a lot of differences actually stem from interpretations of man, not a revealed text. It is interpretation of man. So in brief, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ definitely would build that consensus, and that would be his priority, to unite the believers and show them the priorities. Even in tashri'ah, in legislation, it did not come wholesale. It came in throughout history. There was focus on priorities, and slowly legislation was made over 23 years, because there is this understanding that Islam cannot be complete like that. It has to go through stages. So as a musharri', as a legislator, as a hadi, the person who guides, as of course a person who purifies, mutahhir, he will exercise his knowledge and his wisdom, and also the revelation he receives from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make our attention most, of course, importantly, focused on the priorities before the minor issues.
Jazakallah, thank you. Dr. Bahmanpour, what say you?
Well, I am actually trying to imagine the situation. Suppose the Prophet comes, and then we have Salafis, Wahhabis, Sufis, Ahlul Hadith. In Shia, we have Ithna-Asharis, Ismailis. Is he going to pick one of us and say, you are right, everyone else is wrong? Or he's calling us, saying, okay, let me educate you. You learn from each other. Each one of you have learned just part of the truth. Let me tell you what the truth is. And this is how the companions of the Prophet were held around him. You see, if today a Shia ordinary person, okay, raised in a Shia family, of course, we are raised the way we are told by our parents. I mean, if I'm born in a Shia family, I'm given the teachings of Shia. If I'm born in a Sunni family, I'm given the teachings of Sunni. If a Shia person goes to a Sunni alim and say, I believe in such and such, oh, you are kafir, get away, get lost. Or if a Sunni go to a Shia alim and say, I believe in such and, oh, you are kafir, you do not believe in the right faith. Now, if Prophet wanted to deal with his companions in the same way, the Quran says, the Prophet, not an ordinary person, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلَكِ. If you were rash, if you were rough, and you had a very hard heart, they would have dispersed from around you. If that is the Prophet, how about the ordinary ulama, ordinary scholars? If we are rash, if we are rough, if we don't have tolerance, if we don't want to acknowledge that people may not know, they may have been educated differently, okay, certainly they would disperse from around us. However, the Prophet is advised, فَعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. Forgive them, ask forgiveness for them. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Consult them in different situations. I think what I imagine, first of all, if Prophet today would come here, first of all, he would be saddened greatly by what the Ummah is doing, killing each other in the name of God, in the name of Islam, saying you are kafir, you do not believe. And secondly, what he tries to do, he tries to educate all of us, not choosing one and saying you are the right one and everyone else is wrong. This is what I assume.
Ahsan, Jazakallah. A lot of young Muslims that I talk to tell me they're uncomfortable with the labels of Sunni and Shia. The idea of these labels, can we ever get away from this? I am an eternal optimist. Is it possible to strive for a non-sectarian belief or attitude ever? Dr. Slimi.
I believe it is possible, and it's going to happen based on the prophecies that we both believe, Sunni and Shia. It will happen. It's just a matter of time. However, there must be a culture to precede that, to accept, whether it's a Mahdi or alayhi salam or Isa alayhi salam, whoever is going to create that environment of unity, even among the Muslims and Christians, it's going to happen. But, you know, when we refer to ourselves, we don't say we are Sunni Muslims. Only when we have this discussion, Sunni, Shia, Ismaili, Zaydi, and this. But we don't refer to us because for Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, our scholars taught the masses, of course the masses and the people, they like this to be categorized. But the scholars don't use this because Ibrahim alayhi salam, as Allah says in the Quran, هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. Ibrahim is the one who named you Muslims. I don't think we need adjectives. سُئِلَ الْإِمام Ahmad, one of the 4 Imams of Ahlul Sunnah, من هم المسلمون قال الذين لا يتسمون باسم. Who are the Muslims? He said those who don't take labels. So basically the youth naturally are thinking there must be a way to come to some kind of big umbrella where we don't have to fight, because labels do create divisions. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Hujurat, which is a constitution of love in the Muslim society. This is how Muslims should live. After he said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ. The believers are brethren, so reconcile between them. After that he said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا يَسْخَرْ قَوْمٌ مِّنْ قَوْمٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُمْ. Do not, O you who believe, do not, it is not fitting to a believer to mock about one another. But he said, وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. And do not use nicknames. That includes adjectives. It is history that unfortunately has led to that schism, and then this discussion who's right and who's wrong. Even among the companions, they disagreed on some minor issues, and they were discouraged to create that labeling, I am right and wrong, and they submitted to one another so long as they turned to Kitabullah and Sunnat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the reference. إن اختلفتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله وإلى الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. If you have disagreement, go back to the Quran, because the Quran is a binding force, especially among Sunni and Shia. It is the interpretation that divides us. But the Quran is clear. And I don't believe that the Quran was meant to be misunderstood or wait for interpretation. There are portions that need scholarly work, but most of the Quran, mufassal. It is clear. Allah calls to unity, to these values that we usually repeat in interfaith programs of harmony and peace. Why can't we, in the intrafaith programs and work, emphasize on this harmony and justice and respect, rather than create or find the faults and divisions? And this is the only way we can even have a platform for dialogue. I don't think we're ready to discuss theological things, because the moment we start with theological matters, we will not agree, I can assure you that. And even issues that we may, or you may think that they are fundamental, we will disagree. So there must be the same spirit you have manifested in the questions, in order to create that environment of respect and highlight, as I said earlier, the priorities that the Prophet ﷺ would draw our attention to.
Thank you so much. Sheikh Bahmanpour, why do we have to be Shia or Sunni? Why not just Muslims? What's your take on that?
I like very much what Dr. Slimi said, that we have to go beyond these labels, and inshallah one day we don't have these labels. Yeah. But I think before we reach that stage, which may be long, we have to be mature enough not to fight over these labels. This is very important. I mean, ideally we should go beyond these labels, but before we reach that time, we have to be mature enough to know that these labels are just there to show different approaches, different understandings. And if we disagree on certain issues, which, as Doctor mentioned, we disagree on certain issues, but why should we fight for it? I mean, it is somehow, sometimes when we think about it deep, it is ridiculous that because you believe that someone should have been caliph 1400 years ago after the Prophet, let's fight and kill each other. It's not logical. I remember one instant in the history, you see, now it seems very illogical to us. At the time of fitna, or mihna, what's called mihna, about the creation of the Quran, at the time of Ma'mun al-Rashid, and afterwards, people were killed because they believed Quran is not created, is eternal. Then after that, when the other party came to power, they killed people because they believed Quran is created and not eternal. Now, is this logical? I mean, if I understand this in this way and you understand it that way, why should we fight over it? Okay, either we can discuss and convince each other, or we say, okay, this is my understanding, this is your understanding. Let me give you one very beautiful example, again, of the history. Once the great Shiite theologian of the first half of the 2nd century, Aban bin Taghlib, was asked, you describe for us what is Shia. And I think the answer he gave would lead us beyond labels, that labels are not important. It is our maturity which should tell us that we will fight over these labels. He said, on those matters where the companions of the Prophet have no dispute about, there is no difference between Shia and Sunnah. I mean, the companions of Prophet all agree that we have to pray 17 rakahs a day as an obligation. We have to fast in Ramadan. We have to go to Hajj once in our lifetime as an obligation. Everyone knows this. There's no difference. In those matters in which the companions of the Prophet disagreed amongst themselves, we know that they disagreed. Some of them saw, for example, Prophet doing one thing at one time, didn't see the abrogation of it, for example, or many different situations which may have led to misunderstanding among the companions. He said in those cases that there is disagreement about the companions of the Prophet, we Shias follow what Ali says. Others can follow other companions. It's just a method. It's authentication of the method towards the Sunnah of the Prophet. The point is, me as a Shia scholar do not acknowledge that my Sunni colleague has the right intention, do not acknowledge that he also wants the correct method, the correct path to the Sunnah of the Prophet, and I say, okay, I fight you because you are not a Muslim, you don't want to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet. My Sunni colleague does not acknowledge that I am seeking an authentic path to the Sunnah of the Prophet and the authentic interpretation of the Quran, and then says, no, you are not a Muslim. If we acknowledge that, okay, although we use different methods, and this is why we are labeled Shia because we use a different method to the Sunnah of the Prophet. Ahl Sunnah are labeled Sunni because they use a different method to the Sunnah of the Prophet. We all know this. And if scholars come together, they can acknowledge that. If we actually accept that the other side has good intention, we don't fight. We just try to educate each other. Okay, if my method is better, I try to educate. I try to tell them this is my method, and they try to do that. However, of course, you know, when these differences come, there are external, outside parties who want to exploit the situation. And unfortunately, we as Muslims give in to exploitation very easily.
So this idea of tolerance needs to move perhaps to understanding, which is what I believe you are alluding to. How do we move this tolerance between the sects to a better understanding amongst faiths?
You see, the esteemed Imam spoke of history. The whole, if you carefully read history, it is all what started all this problem in our reading of history, and I wouldn't say consensus, but the people who have invested time and energy to see where the problem started, it's not really in Tahkim, it was before Tahkim. The killing of Uthman radiallahu anhu caused all this problem. And our understanding is both parties were right. Why? Sayyidina Ali, karamallahu wajhah, alayhi salam, was right. He did not want fitna. If he asked for the blood of Uthman, who had a big tribe, Banu Umayyah, he was the ruler because the bay'ah was given to him. If he asked for the blood at that time, it would have caused big war. And we say he was right. And Aisha radiallahu anha and Talha and Zubayr, they were also right. But later they realized it was a wrong thing they did. But they wanted to stand for Uthman. Uthman is very important in Islam. Uthman gave everything for Islam. Uthman, when you read what he did for Islam in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ما ضرك شيء بعد اليوم يا عثمان, nothing will harm you. He was a man who has invested everything, including, the time of Medina and before. So, for people who loved Uthman, felt that his blood should not go in vain. Both of them had the good intention. Now, we will never agree maybe on that issue, but I see both parties were right. Ali, Karamallahu wajhah, alayhi salam, he took the right decision because he avoided fitna. The other party, they were in Hajj, and the people who did what they did, the killing of Uthman, seized that opportunity. They see that it can happen because you kill the leader, the Amir al-Mu'mineen of the believers. Tomorrow anybody can come do this. Both of them interpreted in a way. And this is the human nature. Let's remember, they are not. And this problem is historical and it's there. We always like to start at the time of Muawiyah and Ali and the disagreement. It's actually started before. And then it started now, you have a political disagreement. But originally it's about the killing of Uthman, not actually the killing of Al-Hussein alayhi salam. It goes back. That's where, and was it really religious or tribal? So what was behind? If we're going to repeat the same mistake, we will never agree. However, we need to look, as I said earlier, to look at the general goals of Islam. What is the common thing that we both read and turn to is the Quran. Because the hadith, you have Ahlul Bayt hadith. We are also Ahlul Bayt, but my forefathers were Shia, politically Shia, but they were Maliki according to fiqh. Ahlul Sunnah, but they were Shia politically. And Harun Rashid wanted to kill our great-grandfather, Idris, who was the founder of Morocco. And they killed him. They poisoned him, if you know the history. But he was the one who brought Madhab Imam Malik to Al-Maghrib. See, politically, as time passed by, we started becoming more divided because we rely on the interpretations. But earlier on, it was a political disagreement. How we should go. And it grew because our references, because the Quran, but according to which interpretation? The hadith, is it hadith according to Ahlul Bayt only, or hadith according to the compilations of Imam Bukhari, Muslim, and then the division. After the hadith, then the imams. So we are going to become different. So to answer your question, we need to go back to the 1st century, back to the time of Prophet ﷺ. Are we able to do that? That's why I said earlier when we asked about the Prophet ﷺ, if he comes, he will teach us basically his teachings of 1400 years ago, clean from no interpretation. No one, all of us here we cannot say that we are infallible, we make mistakes. That's another issue. But back again, the key answer to your question, can we just look at the Quran and see what are the major goals of the Quran highlighted and bring al-kulliyat, the major rules that we agree on, because Islam is a religion of common sense. And exercise al-aql, common sense. Does Allah want this ummah that he addressed in the Quran, وَأَنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُونَ. This ummah of yours should be one ummah. And I am your Lord, so worship me. So unfortunately, it's going to be a difficult task. Due to the resources we go back, unless we're willing to say, let's go back to the original thing, the Quran, we agree on it. And we know very well Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the goals, the major rules. Let's put aside the individual interpretations.
Yeah. So you have mentioned history. Please go ahead, Dr.
If I may add to
by all
this,
means.
I think the respected Sheikh emphasized the difference in method. And the history, we cannot do anything about history. Of course, all of us have our interpretations about history. We cannot do anything about it. There is nothing that we can change, and it would be illogical to fight about it. The method is important. You see, okay, the Quran is the main source. However, your sources to the Sunnah of the Prophet, as you mentioned, we have Imam Bukhari, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Muslim. Okay, Shia say, okay, for us this is not very authentic. And the Sunnah said, okay, for us the traditions from Ahlul Bayt are not very authentic. There's no problem. I mean, we can agree to disagree on the method. However, I have to acknowledge my Shaykh, with good intention, through his methods, which are the books that he reads, to the Sunnah of the Prophet, when he wants to make ablution, he does it this way. This is because his methods, his sources, his path towards the Sunnah of the Prophet tells him do it this way, and he is actually relying on those sources. My sources to the Sunnah of the Prophet tells me, no, you do it this way. Okay? Now, should we call each other kafir? Should we say that you are not Muslim? Is this right? Is this logical? Is this what Allah accepts from us? I don't think so. I think if we accept that both of us have good intention in our way to in our method that we seek to find the Sunnah of the Prophet. And these are very trivial things. I mean, once in a sort of intrafaith session, I was talking about unity, and one man stood up and said, he was Shia, of course, why do you talk about unity? We have nothing in common with Ahlul Sunnah. Our salat is different, our ablution is different, our hajj is different, our fast is different. I said, okay, so we fast together, we go to hajj together, we do salat together, we have ablution before salat, we have all these things in common. And you say, there are trivial differences in all these things. What is the matter that we cannot understand, we cannot see? These 95% commonalities, and we just point on those 5% differences, which is quite natural. Between different Shia mujtahids we have these differences, between different Sunni imams we have these differences. Why should then these labels cause us to become enemies of each other? I think this is something Allah is not going to forgive us, because He has explicitly mentioned, أَقِيمُ الدِّينَ وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ. Do not divide in your faith, despite natural understandings that we have differences of understanding. We are not going to be forgiven by God if we fight each other over these issues.
Indeed, indeed. So there is, such a beautiful consensus building up here. I'd like to open this to the audience. Abdul Aziz, you have a question.
Listening at the commonalities that draws Muslims together, the Qibla, the Salah, Halal, concept of Halal. You look back in a history in time, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Muslims, the Shias, Ahl Sunnah, work together and build a harmonious and productive societies. What happened after that?
Well, this is not only true for Sunni-Shia relations, even among the Sunnis or among the Shias, things have changed. There is undoubtedly a significant change in terms of religious education. And people are not educated about the religion. They may know a lot, but they're not educated about the religion and its spirit. I'll give you an example. Even within the Sunni Muslims, you will find that places where people didn't know much of the religion have more love, more accomplishment, more charity, more work. As you said, مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ. And then when there is knowledge, you see more division, more problems. So today is the day we have access to information. We have access to knowledge, but there is no more wisdom. And wisdom necessitates to work with everybody and preserve the sanctity of life. For instance, in Iraq now, it has become like a slaughtering house in the world. You can describe this beautiful country, Iraq, which is Ariq, which is ancient, the cradle of civilization. And look at it today, is the worst place to be because nobody is tolerating nobody. It's very bad. And this goes back, of course, to this religious intolerance based on ignorance. And not only ignorance, as I said, of the letter and the books of knowledge, ignorance of what religion is all about. But not all of these differences are based on religion. You have also ethnocentrism. You have political differences. It's like a soup mixed of different ingredients, and it tastes now very bad. So, if you look at Iraq, for instance, and what happened recently with these criminals, we call them now Khawarij, ISIS, because as Rasul described them in his prophecy, لا يتجاوز القرآن حناجرهم. And here he referred to the Quran because the Quran is a mu'tamad. The reference is the Quran, and Rasul said, in the end times, just stick to the Quran, he will unite you. That's an indication this is where we should start. Neither Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, nor Abu Bakr, nor Umar, nor Uthman, nor Ali, nor those who followed them have ever touched the Yazidis or the Chaldeans or the Christians. They never did anything to them. So we have now the blood has become very cheap because people are working against Islam in the name of Islam. And this is unfortunately both Sunni and Shia are recognized as a fitna. Bigger fitna than what happened between Sunni and Shia. It is a fitna that really shows to the world that there are Muslims who are killing, they have no regard to sanctity of life, period. And of course, this needs definitely, for the sake of common interest, forget the philosophical agreement or consensus, that for the sake of that name Islam with capital I, we should come together and stop this evil because it has gone beyond, the limits. So again, your question is very deep. At the end of the day, what happened to us? It's happening everywhere, and unfortunately, if we keep sleeping the way we are doing, I think it's going to get worse and worse because wisdom is lost, and wisdom needs to be, of course, acquired, as Rasulullah says, الحكمة ضالة المؤمن أينما وجدها فهو أحق بها. Wisdom is the lost treasure of the believer. Wherever he or she finds it, he is worthy of it.
And indeed, this is a classic case where there is the idiom to say, man learns from history, that he does not learn from history. We have a question from Muhammad.
Both of you mentioned labeling in your discussion. And as I know, as my field is Islamic studies, that all Muslims, they believe, whoever says and believe in Shahadatayn, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he's a Muslim. But the takfir language, calling some Muslims disbelievers, is becoming a major issue. What can be done to stop this kind of language?
I think this is a very unfortunate situation that we are living in at the moment. And the root cause of it is ignorance. The people who label other Muslims as such are ignorant the way, first of all, faith works, the way history of Muslims have developed, and the way in the past Muslims, different groups of Muslims have treated each other. Let me give one other example from the history. In Baghdad, in the beginning of the 5th century, the end of the 4th century, we had imams of different faiths leading people in the most peaceful way, having conversations with each other, debates with each other about their faiths, writing articles and books on their faith, and no one actually fought. We had Abu Abdullah al-Mufid, the leader of the Shias in Baghdad. We have Abu Ali al-Jubbai, the leader of Mu'tazilis in Baghdad. We had Imam al-Baqillani, the leader of Ash'aris in Baghdad. They all respected each other. They all lived together. If one of them passed away, they attended their funeral. They never said they are not Muslims, they are kuffar or such a thing. I think in our, especially in the modern world, in the past couple of decades, the shallow understanding of faith. You know, the internet is there. I am just a youth thinking about my faith. I'll go and read a couple of articles, and then I say everyone else is kafir. You know, many of these people who are now fighting with ISIS, for ISIS, are new converts. Until 2 weeks ago, they were not Muslims. Now, after 2 weeks, they have converted to Islam, and they tell us, you are not Muslims. We want to kill you. You see, this is very funny. This is because of ignorance, shallowness of understanding. Otherwise, I don't think Muslim scholars have ever treated themselves, each other in this manner, and following them, Muslim masses have not treated each other in this manner.
Thank you. Please.
The language of takfir is becoming, as you said, very apparent, especially because of internet and means of communication. Everything has opened up now. You can see anything and everything. In our tradition, we were discouraged to make someone kafir because, as the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you accuse someone to be kafir and he's not, it goes back to you. Because you accuse people of... The issue, very, very critical, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very upset with one of the Sahaba companions who killed a person, and that person, as he was about to die, he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I'm sure this tradition is known to everybody. And then he said, he is kafir. He just out of fear of my sword, he uttered the shahada. He said, Hal shaqaqta ala qalbih? Did you open up his heart and see what's in it? We have the concept, prophetic concept of husn al-dhann bin nas. Always think good about people. However, and I'm going to be open here, there are some people who use, sometimes they do takfir on some Shia. They will tell you the Shia are kafir, the Shia are not. Among the Sunnis, if someone, for instance, calls anybody other than Allah, of course the Shia here have to explain to the Sunnis what do they mean by those things. But the call in the Quran, وَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ. So when you call and pray, you should pray only to Allah. This concept, Prophet Muhammad spent 23 years explaining to people. So some people read some of the prayers of other sects as praying to other than Allah. They rush in making takfir. Whereas scholars in the past never jumped and made takfir like that. So you do have this culture of making takfir not only on Shia. We have also takfir on some Sufi tariqas within the Sunni by some groups that are unfortunately everything for them is black and white. So Tawheed is the essence of Islam. We can agree on that. And Tawheed is the La ilaha illallah is miftahul Jannah, is the key to Jannah. And that's why some people, the first thing they learn Tawheed, anybody does something, they don't have the knowledge, they use this statement and say, look what they are saying, look what they do. They worship other than Allah. So that's why there is this language of takfir. But if we go to history, since the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we were discouraged to utter. And we were told that we become kafir not because of uttering, that if we kill and shed the blood, Fala in his famous khutbah of Hajjat al-Wada', he said, إِنَّ دِمَاءَكُمْ وَأَعْرَاضَكُمْ وَأَمْوَالَكُمْ حَرَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ كَحُرْمَةِ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا فِي بَلَدِكُمْ هَذَا فِي شَهْرِكُمْ هَذَا فَلَا تَرْجِعُوا بَعْدِ كُفَّارًا يَضْرِبُ بَعْضُكُمْ رِقَابَ بَعْض. He said the sanctity of life is the sanctity is as equal as the sanctity of this land, of this month, of this time in the farewell Hajj. He said, do not become kafir and start killing one another. So, because sanctity of life is very, very, very important. You don't shed blood like that. And always have the good, feeling and thought about others. Don't be judgmental. This is the culture, but that culture unfortunately is fading away because of this black and white attitude, this intolerance, this lack of listening and reaching to others. And I believe from the Sunni perspective, Shia should come and explain more their beliefs and explain to the public why they do what they do, so people don't accuse, some Shia sects, not all of kufr, for instance, or this. I'm just talking openly. This is what it is. Looking at these people who say why they do takfir, because of this calling others other than Allah. And this is not only Shia Sunni, but also within the Sunnis is the same problem. There are people who make takfir on people within the Sunnah as well.
Thank you for that. I think this is a perfect segue, what you've started in the last comments, to say, what can we do? Let's roll the clock back to the present day. What practical steps can be taken to mitigate or perhaps to reframe the conversation that we've been having? Fatima Sajan, you have a question.
Assalamu alaikum. First off, I'd like to thank you for shedding light on this very relevant subject. Based on your knowledge and experience, how can we use our mosques to bring different sects together so that we can know each other and enhance our understanding?
I think coming together needs a common cause, and therefore to bring mosques together, to bring imams together, need that we should define common programs. At times we have to hold our programs together rather than having it separate. I know that it's not possible all the times because the occasions differ, cultures may differ. However, at times we can have things together. However, the imams of mosques also play a very great role in leading the people. Sheikh mentioned very appropriately that the Shia have to explain their views. For example, if we respect and revere the Imam, we are not worshipping him, we are just respecting someone who is getting us closer to God, guiding us. And always respect for teachers, respect for shuyukh, respect for the Prophet is something which is acknowledged by everyone. However, what if I'm explaining this and a Sunni Imam in the other mosque say, what these Shia say is all lie, they do taqiyya. See, it would destroy everything that I'm going to say. He may not understand what was the reason, the cause of taqiyya, for example, in the Shia history, because if they said we are Shia, they would have been killed. Okay, it's very simple. However, if I'm going to explain, I think from the other side, the scholars have to help me as well. They don't label that I'm lying in explaining my views. And this should be done with good intention, in a very nice atmosphere of mutual understanding, mutual respect. And then, of course, we can both benefit from our proximity towards each other, helping each other. So I think the mosques play a great role here, and especially the imams in the mosques play a great role here. If I, as a Shia imam, say that, all these Sunnis, they tell lie that they are believers. They are not believers truly because they have rejected what the Prophet said about Imam Ali, for example. If I say this, what will happen? My people in my mosque will go out, and when they talk to a Sunni, they have their guard initially. And if a Sunni Imam says to his followers that these Shias, they tell lie because they do such and such, for example, or they do taqiyya, then the whole road for mutual understanding, cooperation is closed. I think good intention, cooperation in the high level between the imams, between the scholars, is very essential for this mutual understanding and mutual work.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I will take Sheikh, unless you want to comment on this, I'd like to take the next question. But
just briefly,
sure.
I mean, there are, Sajjad is here. We have done few things in the past. Whether when we talk to the federal government, do things on behalf of Islam, capital I, the Islamic faith, issues that are common for us, raising funds for hospitals in the name of Islam. It was not Sunni or Shia. Everybody partook. These are positive things and should be multiplied. You will always have people opposing this work. My philosophy, if I am going to synagogues and churches and temples and speaking there and sharing food, why can't I go to Shia places? So I do come here and other places, Isra and Mi'raj. We all believe in Isra and Mi'raj, Milad of the Prophet ﷺ. So if we are going to listen to the extremists in both, sects or both in Shia, Islam or Sunni, we will never move forward. So there is that pulling force. And sometimes Imam, as you said, has to have this independence. And I do appreciate in the Shia Islam the maqam and the position of the Imam in leadership and respect people. And I always say it to our people, I say, the Shia Imams are respected better than the Sunni Imams. And I say it, I take that positive because the Imam in Shia is the reference, he's a marja'iyah, whereas in Sunni he is a teacher, could be a charismatic leader. And unfortunately many among the Sunni Imams are not really, they did not do the traditional knowledge, but they learned it, they're autodidact, they learned by themselves. And they have respect, so because the imamat is not clear in the Sunni Islam, everybody is responsible. So there are many things we can do to build trust first, but before you build trust, you have to build respect. In any relationship between two people, even husband and wife, first thing is respect, ihtiram. Ihtiram, taqdir, tawqir. If you don't have these, this is the minimum relationship between two human beings, perfect. A relationship, we're not talking about. We're talking about minimum in relationship is ihtiram. Once we establish ihtiram, then we have what we call communication. Once we have good communication, we start trusting one another. And then after trust comes love. We can't speak about love without ihtiram. First, these four are fundamental in every relationship. So let's find what would bring respect. We are respecting the Jews and the Christians, and we don't respect someone who is praying our salat, facing our qibla, eating halal, and the Prophet said, فَذَلِكَ الْمُسْلِمِ. And this is the irony. We are the very ones who disobey the very teachings of Prophet ﷺ. So let's work on respect, and that's fundamental.
so I think those are profound words to increase that respect. Any other question on practical steps?
Is the issue of celebration. We all like to celebrate. So one way to, I like your opinion on this, is to how can we use celebration to unite Sunni and Shia? Because, for example, during the Prophet Muhammad's birthday, Miladun Nabi, there are many occasions in Islam, they are specific, and I've been part of that. Can you speak to that as to how we can use celebration as a practical steps to bring unity together?
Dr. Slimi, please.
Again, we have, as Muslims, common times to celebrate. For instance, Karbala, we don't celebrate. We basically fast and we pray. Of course, always, as our Imams, Imam Malik, they say about the Karbala issue that is celebrated in Shia, that Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, Sayyida Shabab Ahl al-Jannah. That what happened to them is their qadar. And then the best that could have happened is the Shahada for Al-Hussein alayhi salam. So this is an interpretation. So that's why there is no celebration there. The Ashura is about fasting, is about this. But there are some Sunnis, like in our, yesterday we had our program of Muharram, we speak about Ahlul Bayt. We say clearly that Al-Hussein was killed wrongfully, but at the end of the day, he is in the best place, best maqam, and Allah has given him shahada because shahada is an honor. So rather than, we try to think positive. So that is might be difficult between Sunni and Shia to celebrate. But let's say Isra and Mi'raj, Milad, but also celebration of our community members' events, Aqiqah, weddings. When we invite people, you learn more about things. You know, I have conducted many Sunni Shia weddings, and I was told this is how we do it in Iran. Can you accommodate? I said, it is a cultural thing. Sometimes some imams say, no, this is bid'ah. You know, for me, I accommodate cultural things. But this is how I do nikah, you know, and nikah. And they say, oh, we want the mahr of Fatima, alayhi salam. I say, no problem. Subhanallah. Why make it difficult? So you have to have the imams, as you rightly said, to be educated. It is us imams who make it difficult. It is us imams who either lead or mislead. So we have to be open-minded. What we spoke about earlier has to be felt by the imams. So you have the jama'at congregations, but you have the leadership. And then you have also the board and of directors. Are they all on the same page or not? And having been imam for almost 20 years, I gained a lot of experience. Maybe I was not 20 years ago as open for the idea than now, because I interacted and I saw. So everybody reaches the keyword maturity in how and start seeing the priorities. We should celebrate things that where we may not have major differences, and probably do you know, more programs, not necessarily celebrations, where we can celebrate our Islam as a religion. Like such beautiful museums, such beautiful settings could actually generate more, you know, respect among Sunni and Shia.
Thank you very much, Sheikh.
Well, I totally agree.
Thank you.
With Sheikh. Also, you know, we may not have sometimes common celebrations. For example, we celebrate something that, as Sheikh said, they do not celebrate. But we have many other occasions which are common, and we have to actually promote that. Even I think, what's wrong if we ask our community that, for example, every week, a part of the community, instead of joining us Jummah here, they go to a Sunni mosque and do the Jummah, and vice versa. Some Sunnis come here and do Jummah, although regularly they do it in their own places. Why not switch sometimes and become familiar with each other, befriend with each other? I think this is one of the things that imams could encourage to happen, and I think this is one of the most effective ways.
We've talked about the question of identity. Fatima, you had a question on identity.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the lovely talk, very inspiring. So, as the Ummah, do we have some commonality that we can touch upon to help us unite us all across the board and end this division?
Of course, we have lots of commonalities. One very interesting point raised by Dr. Slimi was that after the Prophet, peace be on him, had this discussion with the Christians coming from Yemen, and they did not accept the argument of the Prophet, and eventually they said, okay, let's do mubahala, call God against each other. And they decided not to do it because they thought there is honesty in the Prophet. After that, the verse of the Quran says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَىٰ كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. Now that we cannot agree on certain things, let's come around a word in which we have commonalities. Okay, what are our commonalities? I think we have to first think, what are our differences? I mean, making ablution in a different way, or praying with tight hands or open hands, is this a difference? Is this really a difference? Okay, commonalities, we all believe in one book, we all believe in one prophet, we all believe in one qibla, we all pray 17 rak'ahs every day as our obligation, we all fast in Ramadan, we all go to Hajj. We all follow the hadith of the Prophet, the sunnah of the Prophet, although our way to that sunnah is different. So I think our commonalities are 95%, the differences even less than 5%. So we can concentrate on that, we can focus on that, provided we have good hearts. That is the most important. We do not have baghi against each other. This baghi which is mentioned in the Quran, that you want to dominate. We shouldn't have the intention to dominate. We just respect, as the Shaykh emphasized several times, respect each other, which brings love, which brings closeness and all these things, and inshallah we can succeed in building this relationship.
Thank you very much. I'd like the next question to be taken from Irfan Jafar by Dr. Slimi, please.
Assalamu alaikum. You mentioned praying Jummah with each other. So I wanted to ask about praying together during Jummah and also in Hajj. There's also sort of schism that happens there. And I want to ask it specifically in relation to fiqh, because fiqh is very technical and a lot of people are not able to study fiqh. And because they're not able to study fiqh, I feel as though they're sort of afraid and rely a lot on perhaps some of the imams that are telling them things that are creating divisions. So if you could speak to that, please.
Specifically fiqh on
on the issue of praying together,
okay.
And in relation to Jummah and Hajj specifically.
Yeah, the scholars in the past discussed جواز الصلاة خلف الشيعة أو الشيعة خلف السنة. Is it permissible to pray behind the Sunni Imam or behind the Shia Imam? Again, we gotta roam around. The essence is Tawheed. Adala and Tawheed. The person who leads the Salat should have Adala, means probity, and should be Muwahid, means he believes only in Allah. And Salat is accepted so long as the person is not praying to anything but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't think we need rocket science. If an Imam says, I am praying to Allah, I'm not praying to Al-Hussein, I'm not praying to Fatima, I'm not praying to, Ammar ibn Yasir or Bilal or any Sahabi, I am praying to Allah, and the Salat has, as he said, has one ruku' and two sajdas, and has the fara'id of Salat. This is what we call, has been inherited even outside the hadith literature of Ahlul Bayt and what came after, and the hadith literature through different chains of transmissions from the companions of the Prophet. There is something called Sunnah Mutawathira, means it is a Sunnah by recurrence. All of us know Sunni and Shia, without even reading a book in Shia, La salata liman la wudu'a lah. This is definitely, even if it's not in this wording, it is in the Shia tradition, because practically no Shia person would pray without having wudu. Of course, la Islam without shahada. There is no Islam without saying ash-shahada. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So again, the fiqh issues can be, I mean, tawaf is 7 times around the Kaaba. Arafat is Arafat. Mina, sleeping in Mina is subject of difference, and even among the Sunni Imams, is it wajib, is it fard, it is mustahab, is it recommended, it is a pillar. So we all know that Mina is not a pillar of Hajj, but it is leading to Arafat. So these differences, you can find room of accommodating each other. It's a very good idea, brilliant idea, to go and experience how the Shia, rather than read in the internet, oh, you know what, their salat, because this is common among the Sunnis, their salat, in their salat, they are cursing Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Aisha. This is now common among many Muslims, especially those who come from countries where there is no Shia. So they know, oh, you know how Shia pray? Instead of reading Fatiha, they are cursing Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. This is popular. So what do you know Shia? Shia, they are the ones who curse Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. Unfortunately, if we have, I did invite Imam Rizvi to our Milad more than once, and he came and spoke and this, and people came and asked him questions and this. We never saw an Imam who is Shia. I invite rabbi, I invite priests, and why don't I invite an Imam who is Shia? So I've done this for many years, alhamdulillah. Imam Rizvi knows about that. So it is important that the Shia Imams start speaking. This is how we do our salat. This is how we pray. We can make another video how we give khutbah and actually have an actual khutbah. You film the khutbah for 20-25 minutes and we can post it, and you post our khutbah so people see what Shia do. Is actually, the more we show and speak about it, then we have no problem. And unfortunately, there is this preconceived idea that the Shia would never tell us that some Muslims also believe, or Sunni, that actually Shia don't read the Quran. They have the Quran of Fatima that they read. So you need to uncover these things. These are common things among the people. So unfortunately, the more, as I said, the more you speak about the fiqh of it, it's common. It's common. It is actually, you said about the wudu. I mean, whether you do this or this is not an issue. You know, it is common that there is a story among Sunnis that both Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein corrected the wudu of an old man. You have that story? And so if Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein prayed that way, and then the description of Imam Ali and the description of the hadith of Uthman is the same wudu. So this is sunnah mutawathira. Both Sunni and Shia, they have the same wudu. Whether they do like this, al-umur bi-maqasidiha, that whether you wash the hand or not. So unfortunately, when ignorance surges above knowledge and the people of knowledge submit to ignorance because of a paycheck or whatever, then unfortunately you will have all kinds of craziness and madness.
Yes, alhamdulillah. So I think I'd like to bring this to a close on the basis that the ultimate objective, and we have great consensus, as you said, among scholars. So Sajjad bhai, you had a question on the objectives.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for such a wonderful exchange today. It's been very enlightening. You've given a lot of common objectives and common themes. Other than what you have mentioned, are there any other ones that we could practically take forward from here and see how we can bring the communities together? Any other thoughts of how we can increase the cooperation, understanding and respect for each other? I think the most important thing is education. Now, Sheikh mentioned things, Dr. Slimi, that I didn't know. That, for example, Sunnis, majority of Sunnis believe that instead of praying, we start cursing, for example. See, it is because people are not educated, or it's, of course, shortcoming about us as well. We do not explain ourselves. And the way forward would be here to try to somehow raise the level of education in Muslim community, and also we reach out more to other communities, to communities who do not know us, who would think that what we do is only insult to their sanctities. So this is, I think, something which is very important.
We believe nobody is perfect. Even our scholars are not perfect. We say La isma lillahi wa li rasuli, that the one who doesn't make mistakes is Allah and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was infallible. And there are two kinds of mistakes. Mistakes, intentional mistakes, and if they are unintentional, we call them mistakes. If they're intentional, of course, there could be dhanb, sin, ithm, and then there are other levels, khata, there are other levels. And if we are not willing to forgive and move on, we will never reach anything. That's number one. Number two, history has passed. We speak about now and the future. And the challenges are becoming bigger as we approach to Al-Mahdi alayhi salam's time and Isa alayhi salam's time and Dajjal time. It might be very near, Allah knows. We're not apocalyptic religion, we don't know when the end is, but we're preparing generations for major challenges. If we are going to always go back and look at history, we will never move forward. Religion was built and finished when Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam left. Quran says, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam deena." Today, I have completed for your religion, I have perfected it, and I have accepted Islam for you as a religion, as a deen. So the deen is not going to happen after the Prophet ﷺ left to the upper world. So why are we adding things to the deen which are not part of the deen? It's all interpretations. So our deen has been completed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I hope that's a consensus, inshallah, to start with. We say all who have done mistakes will be forgiven if their intention was right. And Allah is Al-Ghafur Ar-Rahim. So let's not bring the names of those who have died. If we can, Sunni and Shia, raise this issue and say, those who have died, amruhum ilallah. Their affair belongs to Allah. Let's work together. We have already differences among ourselves. Even in Sunnah, Hanafi, Shia, furu', secondary issues. If we can come to that ground and say, okay, let's leave those things. Let us speak good. Let's not mention the dead with anything bad. I believe strongly we can show love and respect to our children, and then they will actually do a better job than us when they see us respect one another and respect those who have died, including those who have done mistakes. Because going back to the past will never move us forward. And we go back to Rasulullah. فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Go back to Allah, the Quran. وَإِلَى الرَّسُولِ. And وَأُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْكُمْ, meaning أهل الحل والعقد, the people who can make decision. And this has to be وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. It has to be by consultation to define what are the priorities. The Muslim Ummah is under attack. And we are still fighting. Of course, there is great benefit for those who want to see Islam finish, to see us fighting. When Iraq war started, I said it, and Imam Rizvi, we were together, and I said, there is no difference between Sunni and Shia. Of course, the interviewer said, are you sure you're Sunni? I said, there isn't. We were fasting Ramadan together, we were this. He said, then where is the difference? I said, there isn't. It was a political difference and evolved throughout history. And people in politics do have different opinions. You want this one as a leader and the leader. Because I think there is potential to move on if we say, let us agree to respect one another. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Let's end on that positive note. Essentially, truly, we are the Ummat Wasata. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. The whole idea of us being created as an Ummat Wasata, a nation most balanced, should truly be an example for mankind. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us tawfiq to actually be that Ummat Wasata. And on that, I would like a final reflection from each of you.
Well, my final word would be that the Prophet would be more pleased with us if we work together, if we respect each other. Allah will be pleased with us if we do it. All these verses in the Quran tell us, do not divide. Of course, Allah would not ask us something which is beyond our capacity. So He knows that we differ on views, on understanding, interpretations. What He's asking us is that despite this different understandings, do not divide, stay together. And this is what I really urge us to do.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and I think this is the best ayah to conclude this session, wonderful session. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. Those who don't have faith, they are awliya, working with one another. If you, the Muslims, don't do it, expect to have fitna, tribulation, وَفَسَادٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَبِيرٌ, and great corruption on earth. I am suggesting, I'm leave this idea with you, that we should have at least in this city we should start an annual conference for both Sunni and Shia. We should work hard and involve our youth to plan it. The youth who are on fitra, on this sound constitution, with no background and baggage, who have this zeal for seeing unity, who don't like too much labeling, to organize a conference where both Sunni and Shia will be together speaking about major important things. We need to educate the masses of the priorities, awlawiyat, that we need to focus on. This is Islam with capital I. This is not about this sect or that group. And these are my final words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you to all of you, in particular the executive team at the Organization of Islamic Learning for facilitating this. Thank you, Sheikh Bahmanpour. Thank you, Dr. Slimi, for those words of wisdom. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us success. And I think the suggestion put through by Dr. Slimi can be taken up by an organization to see that inshallah we may have a conference of this nature. On that note, we say, Ahsan, Jazakumullah khair, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Barakallah.